You're watching New York 1 On Demand.
Hello and welcome to On Stage. I'm Donna Carger. Coming up on today's show, we'll catch up with 5 new entries in this busy fall season.
Stepping out with my baby, can't go wrong 'cause I'm in right.
From superstar Hugh Jackman returning to the Great White Way in his very own show, Hugh Jackman back on Broadway, to the first ever Broadway revival of the 1971 musical Godspell.
Kiss my foot.
From the downtown hit Venus in Fur making its way uptown, to
If you have poison for me, I will drink it.
Sam Waterston tackling King Lear at the Public, and Mary Testa tackling Niagara Falls in the historically based Michael John LaChiusa musical Queen of the Mist. We'll have reviews of all 5 new productions. But first we'll bring you up to date on some theatrical goings-on about town, and we'll begin with the 3 Broadway openings of the week gone by. On Stage's Frank DeLella has the details.
It was a theatrical smorgasbord on Broadway this past week as 3 works, a musical revival, a new play, and a one-man show all took to the main stem. I was there for all 3 opening nights, and this is what I got. Stephen Schwartz's rocking take on the Gospel according to Matthew returns to Broadway for the first time in 34 years. Now updated and set in modern day, the show features an ensemble of 10, led by Hunter Parrish, who plays Jesus, and Wallace Smith, who plays Judas.
What I have, my relationship with Jesus is so a spiritual thing, and I love that our show is actually just, it's spiritual, but it also transcends that in a way that it's just sort of like fun, and it reminds people that Jesus was a man just like the rest of us.
People know about Judas from reading the Bible, and they immediately think that Judas is just this terrible person. What's beautiful about Godspell is he's painted in a completely different nature, and he's the one really that is Jesus' best friend. And to play that role and to deal with all of those different dynamics, it's awesome.
Call Stacy and tell her that you won't be coming home tonight.
The erotically charged Venus in Fur made its Broadway debut on Tuesday night. Written by David Ives and directed by Walter Bobby, this show comes to the Great White Way after a successful run off-Broadway in 2010 at the Classic Stage Company. The two-hander features original company member Nina Arianda as aspiring actress Vonda and Hugh Dancy as theater professional Thomas.
It's so personal for me on every level, not only because it was, in a way, I guess, breakthrough for me, but also because I love this play more than anything.
I didn't see it downtown when it was on at CSC, but I heard great things about it. I read it, a few months ago when they were looking to cast this role, and I thought I'd love to be in that room.
And finally, from one hue to another, 2004 Tony Award winner and Hollywood megastar Hugh Jackman returned to the New York boards on Thursday. In his new show, Hugh Jackman back on Broadway.
There'll be smooth sailing 'cause I'm trimming my sails. In my top hat and my white tie and my tails. Oh!
An opening night is always special, but a Broadway opening has just got there's another level to it. I'm a kid from the northern suburbs of Sydney, so the idea of opening in a show, your own show on Broadway, is beyond the stuff of dreams.
The audience participation part of your show was so much fun. What's it like every night, switching up the show and getting some interesting characters up on the stage?
Yes. It's a white knuckle ride. You never know exactly what's going to happen. One thing you're sure of in New York is they're up for the party. So it's always different, and that's what I love. And when I go to the theatre, I love to feel that you've kind of seen something that no one else saw. That something happened tonight, And I love it when people come to me and say, "Oh, the night I was there, I saw this," and I think that's something special. Is why we love live theatre and why I keep coming back to it.
Big day maybe tonight.
And you can catch superstar Hugh Jackman, Godspell, and Venus and Fur all now playing on the Great White Way. In the theater district, Frank DeLella for On Stage.
Thanks, Frank. We turn now from some real-life Broadway openings to some made-for-TV Broadway. Smash is a new television series set to debut on NBC in February. It's a behind-the-scenes look at the making of a fictional Broadway musical about Marilyn Monroe. Some members of the Smash company turned out this past week when the folks from the New York Musical Theater Festival, a.k.a. NYMF, honored two of Smash's executive producers, Neil Marin and Craig Zaden, at the annual NYMF Gala. Deborah Messing and Christian Borle play a successful songwriting team on the series, which will feature songs by a real-life successful songwriting team, the Tony-winning duo of Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman.
Smash is about all the drama, the sexy drama behind the scenes of people who come together despite impossible odds to put together a Broadway musical. And it stars Deborah Messing and Angelica Houston and Jack Davenport and others. And I think it's very, very smart and very funny. And if anybody, even if you don't care about Broadway musicals per se, I think these people are going to be fascinated.
And the writing's incredible, and it's a love letter to New York City. And not only do you get to see the making of a Broadway musical, you get to really invest in these characters and see what their personal lives are and what their family lives are. And so there's a lot to offer.
Producers Marin and Zaden, whose Broadway credits include the current revival of How to Succeed in Business and the recent revival of Promises, Promises, shared with us their excitement about the NYMF honor and the upcoming debut of Smash.
It feels really great to be honored by this organization because it's about the creation of new musicals, and that really is the lifeblood of the theater.
Well, also it's our return to New York and to Broadway, because we started here originally and then went out to Hollywood to make movie musicals for TV and for film, but now we're back producing on Broadway again, so this is sort of an acknowledgement and an embracing of the theater community to us.
You know, Smash is kind of like the hybrid of everything that we've done up until this point, because it is a new musical within a musical series. It is bringing musical theater to the masses in a very, very popular way.
We're just so happy that we're able to have the opportunity to combine three forms of entertainment. We never thought we would. We never thought it would happen. But on February 6th, when people tune into Smash, they're going to see the best of theater, the best of movies, and the best of television.
So you can tune into Smash for your fictional Broadway fix. For more information on the real-life New York Musical Theater Festival, you can log on to nymf.org. In other news, what's it like to step into the leading role in a Tony-winning Broadway musical while the production's Tony-winning star is on a brief hiatus? That's the challenge Stephanie J. Block is facing as she takes on the role of Reno Sweeney in the Roundabout's revival of Anything Goes, while Sutton Foster is off for a few weeks working on a TV pilot. On Stage caught up with Block during a recent photo shoot for Anything Goes. Now, Block is, of course, no stranger to Broadway herself, having starred in musicals like 9 to 5, The Pirate Queen, and Wicked. She spoke with us about the unique challenge of her current, rather brief assignment.
My prep time from phone call to first night on stage was about 3 weeks. So the phone call happened, and then about a week later, rehearsals began. And really, I just assumed it was going to be a normal rehearsal schedule, 10 to 6, 10 to 6, 10 to 6. And of course, that couldn't happen because the show was already up and running. So there was a little 4 hours here, 2 hours in between shows here, an hour with music there, wardrobe fitting. And so I think we added up the total, and it came to be about 23 hours of rehearsal that I had. Otherwise, I was standing in the wings and just absorbing as much as I could and trying to learn and bringing home all of the homework and all of the knowledge that I had gotten that day and just kept, pounding it into my mind and my body and then praying to God that when I stepped on stage last Friday night, it would be there and, come as second nature. And it did. It worked. Surprised even me, I got to be honest.
You can catch Stephanie J. Block in Anything Goes through November 22nd. Sutton Foster returns to the show on November 23rd. And finally today, this past Monday night, Alice Tully Hall played host to PHILDEV Celebrates Broadway, Suites by Sondheim. The event served as a benefit for the Philippine Development Foundation, a charitable organization which focuses on both social and economic development in the Philippines while helping those in need there. The all-Sondheim concert was presented by a company of Filipino-American Broadway performers led by the Tony-winning Lea Salonga.
You don't see this many Filipino artists on one stage in New York City at a venue like the Alice Tully Hall, I think ever. So this is something historic for us and for every single one of these actors and singers to be a part of it and to say this is a part of my personal history and my own identity as a Filipino in the United States. It's something. It's very special.
Among the evening's honorees, Tony-winning Book of Mormon and Avenue Q co-creator Bobby Lopez.
I grew up half Filipino, sort of in between and not really knowing much about it, and I've kind of grown, I've sort of learned about it over the years, and it's just it feels so welcoming and warm and wonderful and just meaningful in a really special way for me that they would choose to have me here tonight.
For more information on the Philippine Development Foundation, you can log on to phildev.org. Okay, it is time for a short break. Coming up next.
And our life forms on the right, babe.
From Hugh Jackman to Godspell to Queen of the Mist, Roma Torrey joins us for part 1 of this week's Critical Marathon. Welcome back. We begin our critical marathon today with Roma Torrey. Roma's had a very varied week of theater going, from Hugh Jackman back on Broadway, to the revival of Godspell, to the Transport Group's staging of Michael John LaChiusa's new musical, Queen of the Mist. Roma.
Really. And that's in part for Hugh Jackman. No, I'm joking. I must confess, though, it is very hard to be analytical when staring at a perfect specimen of man. And when that man turns out to be Hugh Jackman, who also happens to be a consummate showman, we're in trouble.
Stepping out with my baby. Can't go wrong 'cause I'm in right.
All right, he's not the absolute best singer on Broadway, but there's no denying he is endowed with a fine set of chops, among other things. But rarely has someone come along with so many natural gifts. His ownership of the stage is unequivocal as he holds his audience rapt for some 2 hours. And whether he's crooning, hoofing, or joking, he makes it all look so effortless. He also displays an impressive range, from Broadway standards to rap and everything in between. The show, directed and choreographed by Warren Carlyle, who's also responsible for the exquisite production of Follies on Broadway, is unfettered by the typical glitz and glam of Vegas-style acts. Aside from 6 lovely backup performers and a prominent 18-piece onstage orchestra, the creative team kept it very simple. Jackman changes costume just twice and virtually never leaves the stage. But given this mega talent who seems to know no bounds, who could ask for anything more?
Thank you, Broadway. It's good to be back.
Anyone can memorize classic songs and great lines, but it's all in the delivery that separates the man from the boys. Hugh Jackman is an absolute superstar. Even his ad-libbed banter with the audience was hysterical. You really have to ask, is there anything he can't do? He acts, sings, and dances with utter mastery. I wonder if he does dishes, preferably mine. And now, as if a cold bucket of water, I'm going to talk about Godspell. I've always thought about Godspell as Hair for the PG set, but while Hair found new relevance amid our latest war woes, Godspell, entertaining as it is, seems hopelessly naive. Lacking cynicism, it reflects a time when idealistic young people could romp around a stage singing about love and peace and win converts. Now, in its first Broadway revival, Godspell turns out to be a 40-year-old relic that's surprisingly irresistible.
It started as a college project in the early 70s, putting a contemporary spin on the story of Jesus as told through the book of Matthew. Using familiar parables, John Michael Tevlak portrayed Jesus as a beneficent bohemian with 9 actors cast as his disciples. It wasn't until Stephen Schwartz came on board to write the music that Godspell became a hit. And those excellent tunes are as toe-tappingly infectious as ever. Attempting to offset the dated stylizing, the production features numerous pop culture references, including Lindsay Lohan, Steve Jobs, and Donald Trump. And gone are the clown costumes, along with the Jesus character's trademark Superman shirt. Daniel Goldstein's crisply paced direction makes good use of the theater in the round, adding some nice surprises. But it's the energetic ensemble led by Hunter Parrish as Jesus that makes the production truly sing. Godspell could so easily turn insipidly saccharine and its simplistic religious themes a possible turnoff. But these talented performers seem to have no problems making believers of their audience.
I've always liked the Godspell score more than Schwartz's music for Wicked, and while it's still awfully sweet, I bet theatergoers searching for a Glee-like fix will find in Godspell the answer to their prayers. You just need to check your cynicism at the door. And now we're going to head downtown. The enterprising Transport Group launches Queen of the Mist, a new musical by Michael John LaChiusa that is highly ambitious yet flawed. And while it doesn't quite succeed, it is still well worth seeing for its artistry and bravura central performance.
Would she survive, or would she sink?
Staged in the gym at Washington Square's Judson Church, it tells the true life story of Anna Edson Taylor, the first woman to survive going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. As portrayed by the sensational Mary Testa, the plucky Taylor was a most unusual woman. The year was 1901, and America was fascinated by daredevils. At 63, Taylor, desperate and alone, decided to build her own barrel, hire a manager, and cash in on what she hoped would be a profitable stunt. That's Act 1, and under Jack Cummings' seamlessly fluid direction, this very basic story emerges complex and compelling. LaChiusa found much inspiration in the life and times of Taylor. His lyrical score is melodic, and his book endows Taylor with psychological layers, revealing a most fascinating character amid the cultural backdrop of early 20th century America. Unfortunately, Act 1's great promise is not realized in the second half. Anna emerges inexplicably self-destructive, and once she shoots the falls, the play loses momentum. LaChiusa keeps his ensemble busy, and everyone shines. Andrew Szymanski as the manager. Frank Russell is terrific. The women, Teresa McCarthy and Julia Murney, stand out in multiple parts. And Mary Testa, exhibiting a dramatic side after dazzling us in scads of musical comedy, is just phenomenal.
Queen of the Mist brings to mind ragtime as it inventively weaves historical fact and fiction, but it seems to unravel with the narrative inertia of Act 2. Still, even when it sinks, this bold new work is a dazzling original. Donna.
Okay, do you see a future for Queen of the Mist if it's reworked to a degree?
I think it needs quite a bit of reworking, and it's in a sense overly ambitious. Michael John LaChiusa just seems to be, doing a little too much for its own good. But there is so much good work in there, and there is a future. I just think he needs to go back to the drawing board and make some fixes.
Okay, and speaking of good work, Hugh Jackman, you just want to go back over and over to see the ad-libbing, how it's, of course, it's not going to be easy to get tickets over and over. But
you know what it is? It's a mutual love affair between him and the audience. And I have to say, no matter your sexual persuasion, he will turn you, male or female. Just bring him on.
Everyone falls in love with him.
He's really amazing, and I'm sorry it's a limited run, because he could run forever.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Thanks, Roma.
Sure.
Okay, it's time for a short break. Up next, our critical marathon continues as David Cody joins us with his reviews of
You Can Wait for Me Until I Decide to Arrive,
the Broadway transfer of Venus in Fur, and
No Less in Space, Validity and Pleasure,
Sam Waterston and Company in the Public's staging of King Lear. Welcome back. I'm joined now by contributing critic David Cody of Time Out New York. He's here today with reviews of the Manhattan Theatre Club's Broadway staging of Venus in Fur and the Public Theater's latest production of King Lear. David.
Thanks, Donna. Full disclosure, the Public Theater's new King Lear is my third this year, so I've had it with Shakespeare's grief-maddened monarch, his fool, his two cruel daughters, and one kind one. Lear raging in the storm, Gloucester's eyes plucked out, yawn. And yet, there's always something new to admire in this timeless tragedy.
Hold thy bloody hand. Why dost thou lash that whore? Strip thine own back. Thou hotly lust to use her in that kind for which thou whipp'st her.
The admirable Sam Waterston stars in this production, directed by James MacDonald, in what is ultimately a mixed bag of good casting, bland casting, expressionistic visual effects, and less than thrilling stage combat. On the plus side, you have Frank Wood as an appropriately vicious Cornwall, Michael McKean endows Gloucester with stiff but honest dignity, and Kelly O'Hara is ice cold as the sadistic Regan. Bill Irwin's fool is spastic, contrived, and ultimately rather irritating. On the plus side of the spectrum, you have John Douglas Thompson's virile and earthy Kent, who steals whole scenes. But, of course, the main attraction and reason this Lear exists, just 4 years after the public produced it with Kevin Kline, is Waterston. While not monumental in this mountain of a role, the beloved actor is passionate and plaintive. He works his way through the poetry with humane intelligence, and the actor's reedy tremolo, so familiar from years on Law & Order, wrings the tears out of you in Lear's sublime curses, laments, and his heart-rending reunion with Cordelia.
If you have poison for me, I will drink it. I know you do not love me.
Like me, you might need a break from this far too familiar tragedy, but there are worse ways to kick off a Lear retirement than this. And now we go from death and tragedy to sex and comedy. Erotic thrill is not something you usually associate with Manhattan Theatre Club. That institution traffics generally in tidy living room dramas. Then again, not every show has Nina Arianda swaggering about in garters, bustier, and a leather choker. The sensational comic actress is currently returning to her breakthrough role in Venus in Fur.
Oh, I thought from the play it had to be porn, but anyway, you don't have to tell me about sadomasochism. Okay? I'm in the theater.
Plenty of ink has already gushed over this gutsy newcomer, who burst onto the scene last year in the Classic Stage Company premiere of Venus in Fur, David Ives' meta-adaptation of the 1870 novel by Leopold von Sacher-Masoch, the Austrian author who gave masochism its name. Arianda follows Venus to Broadway as Wanda, a daffy, mysterious actress who gives a last-minute nighttime audition for Thomas, a repressed writer-director trying to bring the novel to the stage. Hugh Dancy has joined the production as Thomas, and he's a perfect match for Arianda, who first annoys, then seduces, and finally dominates the deeply conflicted writer. For the Broadway transfer, director Walter Bobby milks the script more. The action now clocks in about 10 minutes longer than it did at CSC. Although easing up on the accelerator gives us more time to savor the sensual slapstick dance between dashing Dancy and ravishing Arianda, it also means the climactic 20 minutes, as gender and power positions sharply flip, can become overindulgent. Nevertheless, Arianda maintains terrific tension at all times, making us laugh even as we get hot under the collar.
I can't do that.
Oh no? You can't?
As we head toward winter, temperatures may be dropping, but Arianda and Dancy are sure to keep things steamy well into December. So, Donna, if Roma can swoon over Hugh Dancy, then I can, admire Nina Arianda as
yeah,
well.
put them together on one stage. Oh.
That's a lot of heat. That's a lot of heat on stage. Yeah.
No, it's obviously a limited run at Manhattan Theatre Club. Would you foresee this moving on to a commercial run?
Well, it's a really entertaining show, and they're terrific performers, but I don't know if they have quite enough sort of combined star power or commercial or sort of pop culture appeal. I mean, it is a fairly obscure source material. I mean, Arianda's terrific. I wish she would sell out shows, but her when she was in the revival of Born Yesterday last season, I mean, that had a tough run, that show. So maybe she's just waiting for the right vehicle and the right constellation.
Right, right. And just a little extra issue with Lear. It's not your official retirement from reviewing Lear, right?
No, I mean, believe me, sometimes I actually think I should have take a Shakespeare moratorium because, it's just like there's the show, he's really produced quite a lot, Shakespeare. But no, I mean, if somebody else comes along, I'll review it.
You'll come back. Okay,
I have to.
Great. Thanks, David. So that is it for this edition of On Stage. For Frank Delella and everyone here at our show, we want to thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you back on stage next week.